Hello, and welcome to Charisms for Catholics. My name is Jill Simons, and I'm the Executive Director at Many Parts Ministries, where we equip the body of Christ by helping people learn about and discern their charisms, which is really another word for spiritual gifts. When you discern your charisms, you're able to see how the Holy Spirit is already active in your life and where He is inviting you to further build the church. Let's dive in. I just wanted to jump on before the episode gets started here and let you know that enrollment is now open for our coaching certification program, our Charism coaching certification program. This program is specifically for professional coaches and trained spiritual directors. So you do need to be a professional coach or a trained spiritual director before joining the training. And it walks you through very in-depth, detailed how to help people discern their charisms so that you can offer it as a service to your directees or your coaching clients. And it also, for the first time ever, includes presenter training that will train you how to do 5 different presentations about charisms to people who are interested in learning more. So it's an incredible program. This is the lowest price that we are ever going to offer it for, and the enrollment closes soon and classes start in October. So I would just love to encourage you to check that out. If you are a coach or spiritual director, or if you know someone that is, feel free to pass this along. This is an incredible tool for them to have in their arsenal to better serve the body of Christ. Hello, and welcome to today's episode of Charisms for Catholics. Today we are getting ready for back to school. Maybe I'll speak more quietly if there's any kids listening that don't want to be reminded that back to school is coming. But we're going to talk about charisms in teachers. This is something that I love to talk about. I do a lot of professional development for school staffs, diocesan staffs all over the country. And I love talking about charisms specifically for an audience of teachers. It was so fun in the fall, or in the spring, I should say. I got to go to the National Catholic Educators Conference and do a breakout session on the diversity in the church and the way that that is manifest in the classroom, which was fantastic. And this is a topic that we'd like to have more episodes on in the future, not necessarily only for teachers, but about how we can better embrace individuals with different needs, disabilities, etc., in our classrooms and churches in light of the charisms that they've been given, not to use them or be mercenary in any way, but to just empower them to be able to be the men and women that God has created them to be, and to not let any perceived disabilities or struggles stand in their way of really being able to fulfill the role that God has for them in the church. So that was fantastic. It is on my bucket list to get Daniel Brown and Dr. Mark, that I was on the panel with, onto the podcast to be able to talk about all those aspects of diversity within the church. But now that that tangent is done, we're going to talk about how teachers can head into this school year with charisms as a tool that they can think about using in the classroom, both for themselves and for their students. So let's get into it. First of all, let's talk about charisms for teachers. Now, if you are an elementary school teacher, so teach middle school down, it is quite likely that you will not have the charism of teaching. You could, but it's quite likely and very frequently seen that excellent teachers at the lower elementary levels do not have a charism of teaching. And when I go into professional development for Catholic schools, and I know that I have mostly elementary school teachers, I try and preface this to eliminate as many of the identity crises as possible, because so many teachers that get their results are like, oh my gosh, my life is a lie. I don't have teaching as a charism, and I've devoted my entire life to being a teacher. And it's important for us to have the right framework to think about what teaching is as a charism, because it is different than the profession of teaching. So teaching as a charism is the supernatural ability to be able to teach in a way that people actually learn. So this is very related to people needing to be able to remember and recall the specific subject matter that you're teaching them. So when you think about the difference between a first grade classroom and a medical school classroom, in first grade, it's very likely that there's going to be a lot of learning going on, but the recall of the specific ways and things learned is much less important than in a medical school classroom where this content needs to be memorized and remembered by the students for the health and safety of their future patients. So, when we're looking at early elementary education, a lot of times people will lead with another charism and maybe not even have teaching at all. Because in early elementary school, a lot of times young people are needing things from their teacher besides being taught information. And we know this really inherently, right? When we meet a preschool or a kindergarten or early elementary teacher, they are often so good at being intentional, being encouraging, getting down to the kid's level, really making the kid feel valuable, known, all of these things that often spring from other charisms. I would say the most common charism that I see in early elementary, again, not in every case, but very common, is encouragement. I would say encouragement is what a vast majority of teachers teaching kids under 15 years old are leading with. And you see a lot higher instance of teaching as a charism when you get into high school, and then definitely college and grad school and beyond. Teaching and knowledge are typically the most common charisms for instructors at those levels. But when you're looking at little kids, it's so helpful for you as a teacher to intentionally discern your charism so that you understand, like we always say, what you're bringing into the classroom when you teach these kids. It's also super helpful for you to be able to go to your administration and articulate to them, these are the gifts that I teach from. So I would love your help in discerning what kids to put in my classes based on who needs those things from me. If you have a school that has multiple teachers at an individual grade level and there is a student, there's a choice about where students are going to spend the majority of their time, it is so helpful to administrators to have the information about what it is that the experience of an individual teacher's classroom is going to be like. Not because one's going to be better than the other or something like that, but because you can actually then look at the needs of an individual student and match them to who is going to best provide for those needs through the specific charisms that they have. So for instance, let's say you have 2 second grade teachers at a parochial school, and one of the teachers is like encouragement and pastoring and knowledge. And so she is really good at getting good readers to just kind of go the extra mile, get really in depth into chapter books, really explore higher, not necessarily higher, but like more challenging literature and things like that. And she's great at encouraging them through that process. She's really good at walking with them with the pastoring charism. And then the knowledge piece really comes in this just like encyclopedic knowledge of children's literature that she's very known for and good at. So that's teacher A. Then we've got teacher B, where maybe her primary charism is something like, let's go with prophecy. So prophecy is her primary charism. I'm making these up on the spot, so that's why I'm taking time to think a little bit. So if prophecy is her primary charism, and then she also has maybe like giving and intercession. These are both profiles that I would expect to see from an elementary educator. It wouldn't be surprising. But in the prophecy teacher example, with the prophecy and the prayer, she is someone that is going to be really skilled at supporting a child through a challenging time. So being able to hear from the Lord about just what the child needs to hear, what it is that the Lord wants to speak in an individual situation, what it is that he wants to do. She's super intentional about praying for all of her students. And she is also just very detached from like material possessions and things through the giving charism. So she's just quick to be able to support children by getting extra supplies and doing things. And so maybe it kind of these pictures emerge where we have teacher A, who's going to be an awesome teacher to continue to encourage and expand reading abilities for kids that kind of have a foundation from which to do that. And teacher B is going to be a great person to accompany children who are maybe struggling a little bit more. And then, of course, there's many other minute discernments from there about, getting the mix of children right and things like that in the whole administration process. So it's not a simple like, oh, we'll just put all in one place or all in another place. But how valuable is that information, right? Is that something that's helpful to know? Absolutely. So if you are an administrator listening to this, or you know an administrator that you want to send this episode to, this is why using just even bulk charism assessments with your staff, or one of our leadership programs or something like that is a great opportunity for you to get extremely helpful information about what you are working with in terms of your staff, what it is that they have to give. And then it also helps you understand where your gaps are and where your struggles are, and to be able to bring in, whether it's volunteers or support staff, paras, whatever the situation might be, to address specific needs, and not just formless, like we need another warm body here, but we have this gap around these specific gifts or attributes that we are looking to fill in these specific spaces in the school. That gives you so much more direction, that gives you so much more information, and that empowers you to be able to serve each individual child that much more intentionally. Obviously, it's not necessarily going to be a situation where everyone is perfectly happy and perfectly taken care of at every moment of every day, because that's just not the reality of school. But it gives you an opportunity to really think and pray with more information that helps you make really great decisions. And I think in a lot of times it simply is a support to the gut instinct, if you will, the instincts of administrators, but it helps you articulate why, and it helps you be clear within your staff about why things are the way that they are, and helps empower your employees to be able to articulate, this is what I bring to the table and this is what I have to give. So it's super awesome on that front. Even if your school is not buying in, maybe you even go to a public school, or I should say teach at a public school. If you're a teacher listening to this, I encourage you to take the first step and get to know your personal charisms, because even if this is not institutionalized at your school, this is something that's so helpful for you to personally understand, so that when there is a need you can fill or a need that you can't, you have more data again to articulate why. Even if you are in a public school, if you come into a specific situation that maybe you don't have what you need, you're able to go to your administrator and say, I'm really able to offer these skills, and you can maybe couch them in a more secular way, or something like that if you feel that's necessary. I think you can also just simply say, these are the gifts that I know that I have to give children, and that's creating a gap in XYZ space. There's things that I need. Either I need more support and training, or I need another adult to be able to address these things depending on what the situation is. And just again leads to that clarity within communication, so that you can be accurate about yourself and about what it is that you have to give and what it is that you do not. Now, let's move on to talking about charisms in your students. Again, there might be shifts in how you approach this depending on what kind of school you are at. But if you are teaching at a Catholic or Christian school, it is going to be quite likely that the vast majority of your students are baptized. That might vary from school to school, but the Charisms for Kids book, Start the Adventure Charisms for Kids, is actually a really cool thing for elementary school teachers. I tried to say elementary and middle school at the same time, and it did not work. For elementary school teachers, and perhaps middle school teachers as well, to be able to think through those lists of questions about individual students. There is a section that has basically, does your child XYZ, does your child XYZ, and they're grouped by charism. And it is written in such a way that it's intended for parents, but there is absolutely no reason that it can't be used by a teacher, simply subbing out the your child for the name of the student. And when you do that, you are able to then identify, not necessarily perfectly, not with 100% accuracy, but well in a lot of situations the likely charisms of your students, and you're able to point those things out explicitly if you feel confident in doing that, or point them out implicitly by simply kind of pushing students gently towards opportunities to do the things that you have identified seem very likely to be within their charismatic wheelhouse. And that builds a lot of confidence in young people. That helps us avoid situations where we are judging a fish by its ability to climb a tree, right? We look at actually accurate criteria for individual children to identify where they are progressing and where they need additional help. And so there's nothing better as a child than having someone that you love and respect point out things that they recognize about you that are unique to you. It's fine, it's lovely to be complimented on something general, but it really increases the trust built and the initiative taken off of a compliment when it is extremely personal to a young person. And so this is something that you can use as intentionally or as casually as you would like. I know some teachers that just have the book handy. If they have sort of an acute need, maybe a child that they haven't quite been able to nail down or figure out, they'll pull it out and think through the questions for that individual child, and then sort of approach it in a one-off basis, creating opportunities, inviting them into things when it is needed. I know other teachers that will use the resources for their entire class and ask them questions or think through the questions in an intentional, personal way within the first like 2 to 3 months of the school year, usually completing it by Halloween or so in a traditional school year, and then spend the rest of the school year with their notes about what charisms they believe each student have to be able to plug them into opportunities the rest of the school year. And it's really up to you. You can use this in whatever way makes sense to you. If there is something that would make it easier and more something that you could just incorporate into your school year, especially if you teach K-8, that you would like for us to create, we would love to hear about that. None of us on our staff are K-8 teachers. Some of us have been K-8 teachers. I have not been. Some of my fellow staff have been K-8 teachers, and we are not currently in development for anything for those because we don't really know what we would make if there was something that was needed. And so we would love input from you about what would be helpful. Our hope, our prayer is that the resources in Start the Adventure Charisms for Kids are going to get you a long way towards what it is that you need to be able to support young people. But if there's other things that would be more helpful, please send us an email and let us know. We'd love to create those things for you. We never want you to feel alone in this process of incorporating charisms into your classroom. And so we would love the opportunity to better support you by creating the things that you think would be helpful. And so you can simply email us at hello@manypartsministries.com. You can put K8 resource idea in the subject line, and we'll chat back and forth with you about what it is that your idea is and how we can best execute it. And it won't happen instantly, I can say that for sure, because we are well into 2026 on our timeline of things in development, but there's a possibility that we could have something ready for 26, 27. So please do let us know your thoughts and ideas. We would love to workshop those things with you. And that really brings us to just our goal always at Many Parts. We're going to have an episode in a few weeks, kind of more deeply into how Many Parts got started and what it is that we're doing here. But we want every person who is passionate about the faith and forming other people in the faith, teachers, catechists, parents, grandparents, godparents, everyone, to feel like they have the support that they need to be able to minister one-on-one to the people that the Lord has given them to minister to. We understand that you are the front lines, the most important people in this process, being with young people every day, being with your peers, being with your own family, and you having what you need to feel supported is our number one goal, because ultimately the church starts to understand and discern their charisms, not because we exist, but because you do. And you have what you need through our small contribution to the process to be able to be that intentional support to the people that you love and that you mentor. So we'll be praying for you this school year, all you teachers. If you are not a teacher, please send this episode to a teacher friend that you know would love to hear about it. And I will also link our Start the Adventure Charisms for Kids book down below, both the physical and ebook version for you so that you can access that in whatever way makes the most sense to you. Hope you guys have a great week, and I'll see you next week. Thanks so much for joining us on today's episode of Charisms for Catholics. If you would like to learn more about your charisms or begin your own discernment journey, head to our website at manypartsministries.com, where you can download our free PDF guide to all 24 charisms and also begin your own journey by taking our charism assessment.